I welcome the great John Rothman. Hi, John.
Thank you very much. May I extend to Kim McAllister my hope that this election is as rigged as possible and that you win.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you're just joining us, Kim is up for Bay Area Audiocaster of the Year with somebody who's a classic rock DJ, but I guess he's ahead right now. So that's the...
well, I can only express my view, and that is that Kim rocks.
Yeah, she does. There's a lot of love for her. People really think she does a lot more on the show than she actually does, but that's fine. I'm not here to disabuse anyone. Kim runs 3 shows and kicks A, says Judy. Well, I agree that she kicks A. I didn't know she ran 3 shows. I don't really keep track of what she does after she leaves because I don't want to be involved in some kind of, subpoena situation later. But, John, this has been a momentous week in American history, especially in regard to Supreme Court decisions. The Supreme Court with a blast of decisions right before the end of their, before the summer recess.
It's term. End of the term.
Okay, is it a term?
Yeah.
Can you speak to where you see it all shake out? Give me, I think there were some manageably, you could refer to them in some way as victories, but you could also refer to them as thin victories. And then there were, I think, some resounding defeats. I wonder if you can speak to them.
Yeah, the most important, of course, was birthright citizenship. Donald Trump doesn't seem to give one whit one way or the other. He issued an executive order. We now know that a president cannot amend the Constitution by executive order. And I think it was a real blow to Donald Trump. Now, you will note that the administration is saying that they will not give up. They are going to proceed. And there was even the suggestion that perhaps Congress could pass a resolution. Mr. Trump, Civics 101. When the Constitution is amended, it must be done constitutionally. And so all I can tell you is that was interesting.
Stephen Miller has a different thought on that. Cut 9, please, for Brother Rothman, if you would, Tony. Cut 9 from Stephen Miller on birthright citizenship.
But if you have birthright citizenship, it means if a person comes here 9 months pregnant to go look around at some things, in a couple of weeks, that is the mother of a lifetime American citizen and a direct line into American cash and welfare for the rest of that child's life. Right? So you have to
Are we banning pregnant women from America? Are we banning foreign pregnant women?
Well, what I'm saying, Jesse, is that you have to now think very carefully about who you let into your country, even on a temporary basis, because the possibility, as you said, for birth tourism, right? The idea that people come here just to have babies on American soil, and that baby gets to be a citizen for life. So you have mothers that come in fully pregnant, have a baby, go home, and again, that baby gets Medicaid, and that baby gets welfare, and that baby gets cash assistance, and can send, leave the baby with, a cousin, a relative, whatever, and then to send welfare checks back home. You can support a whole family in the third world. So yes, you can't have the kinds of immigration programs other countries have when you can just have a baby here, and now that child is an American citizen. So there's a lot of things we're going to have to take a hard look at, Jesse.
Your thoughts, John Rothman, on what he's just said?
Well, Stephen Miller clearly is off the rails. He has been for years. Birthright citizenship is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. There were 3 justices who did not observe the strict constructionism that they announced they would. But my feeling very strongly is the Supreme Court did the right thing. Somebody is asking me about the transgender decision. Essentially what the court did was, again, predictable, leaving it up to the states. And that is precisely what this Supreme Court believes. What I tell you in terms of judgments is the expansion of presidential power, the ability to fire at will people in the executive branch, except when it comes to the Federal Reserve. Well, that sets us up for all kinds of just disgusting
That was in my judgment, most damaging decision.
Thank you.
In a governmental way. I think there have been other damaging decisions you could certainly point to the LGBTQ. But I did want to make one point. Sorry, John, to interrupt. I did want to make one point that it is often the case that it's said we're the only country in the world, you hear Trump says, that has this. We're the only country in the world that has mail-in voting. We're the only country in the world that has birthright citizenship. That's just bullshit. There is birthright citizenship in many countries. Canada's one of them, okay? Also, there's mail-in voting in many countries. So you hear this stuff, and it's propagandized this way, and it gets on this blowtorch of Fox News Channel, and it's just not true. So you can have arguments about asylum seekers and whether the bar for asylum seekers should be raised. But when it comes to birthright citizenship, you just can't make stuff up like we're the only country in the world that has it. So go ahead.
Well,
Sorry,
even
John.
Steve Hilton, who is the Republican candidate for governor of California, has said there is no fraud in California elections.
Well, he said that, John. He said that in a self-serving way. He said that because he won, so he's going to the gubernatorial race. That's the reason Steve Hilton said it. I don't give him any credit for making that statement. I mean, if he were to say that there was fraud in the election, it's his election that he won. Of course, he doesn't want to say that.
The fact that he said it contradicts Donald Trump, because Trump maintains Hilton only won because he made a phone call. But I want to point out that Donald Trump in 2016 said he lost California because 3 million illegal immigrants came into this state and voted against him. And I'm going to tell you that was as pure rubbish as the statements they make now. Donald Trump does not observe constitutions. He believes he can rule by presidential fiat, and at least the court has put some brakes on that.
But now to your other point, John, which is that he will now be able to operate with a capriciousness that he's shown he's able to operate with, a fiat that he enjoys, in impulsiveness that he displays constantly when it comes to firing the heads of major agencies and major regulatory bodies across the administration.
Except for the Federal Reserve.
Except for the Federal Reserve. But that's that. This is the Supreme Court decision that permitted this. It really supercharges his power, doesn't it?
It does. And it's an expansion of presidential power that is just appalling to me. And certainly if the founders of this country were alive and could speak, they would object to this most assuredly.
All right. Now, let's just get the immigration thing is interesting. J.D. Vance weighs in on it. Also, the guy who is play this. There's this guy from Texas. What's his name, Kim? The guy from Texas who's he's there on the steps of Congress saying that we should actually alter the Statue of Liberty, that it's become a sort of a perverse message. You know,
let's cover it up.
Yeah. So here he is.
Representative Troy Nehls from Texas, and before he was a congressman, he was a county sheriff.
Yeah, he wants to crack the whip again. Here's Troy Nehls on.
The fact of the matter is this: is that if the American people are truly going to enjoy the 4th of July, right? You have to love our country. Number one, you have to love our country. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people. Can I tell you something? This is what we got to do. We got to put a bed sheet. A big bed sheet over the Statue of Liberty. 10 years. 10-year moratorium on immigration. No more. We have to get this under control. The amount of people that are in this country, we don't even know who they are. The tens of millions that came through in the previous administration, we don't know who they are. The people over here on visas, you signed a little deal that says, I come over here for 5 years and then I'm going to leave. They're overstaying their visas. The fact of the matter is, we got to have a 10-year moratorium on immigration. So we got to have a freeze, put a bed sheet over the Statue of Liberty.
Why a bed sheet?
Instead of having a bed sheet, because she's going to need to go to sleep for a while. She got to go to sleep for a while because we're not letting anybody in anymore.
That's a good look, the bed sheet. I'd love to see that. You want to make sure you get the right color, though, that goes with it.
What I'm trying to say is,
you remember who wore a bed sheet? The Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
And I just hasten to point out, also want to point out there are those who would like to see Emma Lazarus's words at the Statue of Liberty covered up.
Yeah, what were those words, John?
Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
Very well done, John. Very well spoken, too, I might add. This is a real interesting insurgent conversation, meaning they seem to have a real jihad going on when it comes to immigration and even birthright citizenship. And J.D. Vance, Cut 7, talks about how the decision is thin. And he's right about this, in my judgment. I mean, again, it didn't sail through the Supreme Court. Here's J.D. Vance, and I'll get to you on the other side.
lining here, and that's the simple fact that a lot of legal experts expected this case to go the wrong direction by 7-2 or even 8-1. The fact that this case was a 5-4 decision effectively means that the concept of birthright citizenship, which is an absurdity to the 14th Amendment, that concept is hanging by a thread.
He's right about that, John. He's right that a 5-4 decision, thank you, Tony, the 5-4 decision really wasn't forecast by experts. It thought, I think the majority of thinking on this was that this thing would sail through the court and just be thrown out. And it was a much closer decision than it probably should have been.
Listen, I agree with you. And it goes to show you the so-called strict constructionists, the originalists, don't read the Constitution word for word, as they said. But the point is that the Constitution was upheld. And the only way to change the 14th Amendment is by a constitutional amendment, which you know, and Stephen Miller knows, and Donald Trump knows, is going nowhere because a majority of the states won't do it. So,
and J.D. Vance is someone who is very much in the conversation, as you know, to succeed Donald Trump as president. And he referenced something that I know got your hackles up, and I've not ever said gotten your hackles up on this show. So the reference to Watergate, because you served with President Nixon. Here is cut 14, and Vance talking about what Watergate would be if it were a story today.
If Watergate happened tomorrow, it would be like a 12-hour news story. Like, the idea that it would have taken down a presidency is crazy. And by the way, if you look at the story of how the deep state took down Richard Nixon, it's not all that different from what the same groups of people, the same institutions tried to do to Donald Trump in the first Trump administration. There is a parallel.
That's outrageous, egregious, and absolutely untrue. I want everybody to know I owe Richard Nixon a lot. He gave me my start, really and truly, and set me up. But what Richard Nixon did was wrong, and it was criminal. And if you don't believe me, listen to the smoking gun tape, where there was an attempt at a cover-up. You can listen to Nixon's own words in the interview with David Frost, in which he says, I gave them the sword and they thrust it in me. Nixon admitted in accepting the pardon from Gerald Ford, his culpability. And I would remind you that the three leading Republicans of those days, Barry Goldwater, Mr. Republican, Mr. Integrity, Mr. Conservative, Hugh Scott, the former chairman of the Republican National Committee and senator from Pennsylvania, and John Rhodes, the Republican leader in the House, went to Richard Nixon because they understood the gig was up. This kind of historical revisionism is appalling to me. And for J.D. Vance to make a statement like he made is absurd. And
yeah, you're so right. I'm so glad you pointed to this. Also, I would say that what was going on in the Nixon administration is going on now, where Nixon was turning the IRS on his enemies. Nixon had an enemies list. Nixon was turning the Justice Department on his enemies. So there was a lot going on. There's a criminal conspiracy associated with the Nixon administration and with some of that, which I've just mentioned. And so it was a much bigger story. It wasn't a 12-hour story. This was a massive story. And it produced a bunch of legislation afterward, didn't it, John? I mean, regulatory legislation to try to prevent presidents from ever doing something like this again.
I just want to point out that the Supreme Court threw out certain rules now dealing with campaign finance that were adopted during Watergate, which will give Republicans this unlimited ability to spend money. It is, again, appalling. But
well, it'll give both parties, to be fair.
Yes, you're right. But the Republicans are the ones who are going to benefit immediately from it because of the amount of money they have. And let me also point out, there is no secret state. The idea that there is a secret state which controls this country harks back to the protocols of the Elders of Zion, the notorious anti-Semitic forgery, harks back to the Masonic conspiracy theories. This is pure rubbish. And there was a that was written during the Watergate era suggesting a secret state. There was no secret state against Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon, as he admitted in the Frost interviews, did it to himself.
Yeah.
And all we have to
by
do
the way,
is-
a quick correction. I think I kept saying 5-4. I mean, I was working off of Vance's
no, it wasn't
comments.
5-4.
It was a 6-3. It was a 6-3 decision on.
No, I wasn't going to correct you again.
I appreciate that.
I knew you would ultimately come to the right conclusion.
Thank you very much.
He generally does, ladies and gentlemen.
I know. I did.
I misspoke.
Exactly. Sorry, it was a 6-3 decision. But the point is still the same, which was I don't understand why the decision was even that close on birthright citizenship.
Because you have Alito and Thomas, who are bound and determined, and Neil Gorsuch, who cast the other vote, explained it in a peculiar sort of way. But you definitely, and you will recall on this podcast, I made clear what I thought would happen in terms of 2 justices for sure. And that goes to show you that they are hardly independent members of the judiciary.
And now to the insurgent Democratic wing of the left. As you know, there were wins posted in New York from Mamdani endorsed candidates. There was a big win in Colorado.
Yesterday.
I'm sorry. Do you want to speak, John? I can just shut up and you can do the show.
No.
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
All right. But you don't want to correct me, but you do want to interrupt me. What's going on here? I don't.
Why are you yelling?
All right. So back to it. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on this. But first, sir, I want you to hear Donald Trump talking about, this is clearly something that's concerning them, the fact that the left, the Democrats, are all commies now. They've been taken over by the commies. We're straight out of 1955. Go ahead.
These are not social Democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists. They're godless communists. All communists are godless. They don't believe in God. This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country. It's happening right now in New York and California. But you'll start living in squalor. You'll live in squalor. There will be no food. There will be no housing. There will be no military. There will be no law and order. There will be no nothing. There will be no nothing. You'll be a third world inhabitant in every way, and everyone will suffer or die. You'll suffer or die. That's what happens.
Trump was making.
This is exactly what he did with Kamala Harris. He painted the same picture. They're going to take it all away from you, everything from your military to your God to your country. Thoughts?
Well, clearly, it's irrational. Clearly, in my mind, a president who would make that kind of statement should be impeached and convicted, removed from office. And I say that without any hesitation.
Well, wait, let me push back on that. Isn't the president allowed to I mean, it's deranged, but isn't he allowed to make those comments without being impeached?
Yes, anybody can comment without being impeached. But the simple truth is Donald Trump is, in your own words on these issues, deranged. You're a Democrat, although I know you pose as an independent. Are you a communist? Are you a communist? The answer is no.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's absurd. It's deranged. It's crazy. All the stuff they're going to take away your God. They're going to take away your country. But he's allowed to say it. I mean, people are allowed to laugh at it, or people are allowed to. You know what I mean? He has the bully pulpit, and he's allowed to say whatever he wants from there. You can't impeach him for it.
Oh, let me explain to you. Why was Richard Nixon ultimately removed from office and would have been impeached? It was his words that were used against him in a cover-up. And I want to suggest
it was the words that were then put into action as a cover-up, sir, wasn't it?
No. Well, I don't want to debate Nixon again.
He was saying, he's saying, if you could pay them off, you could get $1 million. Yeah.
Okay. The point being that when you make statements which are not rational, and you are the president of the United States, and you have the nuclear codes, and you make statements that are completely wrong, and frankly, I think a national disgrace, there is no provision which says it's high crimes, and misdemeanors. Misdemeanors are not defined. But when you have a president who is so untruthful, well, it's very clear. By the way, Donald Trump announced that Iran and the United States were going to meet face to face. Do you know that?
Yeah, well, I said it yesterday that was just total bunk. He's manipulating markets. But you'll
recall we talked about that weeks and weeks ago, and I told you it was rubbish.
I want to just get back to Donald Trump on the tarmac in front of the gift from the Qataris, which is this new Air Force One. It's a flying palace. Yeah. Here is Donald Trump talking about the expense of it. Cut 11, let's start with, please, Tony. Here he is just a few minutes ago.
What's your favorite upgrade to the new plane, and how much did it cost American taxpayers to upgrade the plane?
Well, it cost very little relative to what it would cost if we did it a different way. So this was a gift from a country that's treated us very well, and they're an ally of us over in the Middle East, Qatar. And I went to Boeing. I said, "Who has the best one?" They said, "Qatar." There's never been a plane like it. Frankly, we couldn't build a plane like this because we wouldn't be willing to spend the kind of money necessary. They spent top dollar. So the head of Boeing said, "This is considered the best 747 they've ever built." And I went to Qatar. I said, "I'd like to use it for a period of time because the other ones, as you know, are under construction. They'll be here in 2 years. And because, the plane is 35 years old." So I said, "I'd like to use it." And the Emir, Tamim, who's a great gentleman, he said, no, I'd like to make a contribution to the country. So it was very nice. And
interesting that if it's not to the country, he's taking it with him, though. He's not leaving it for the country. That's the only,
he's taking it to his presidential museum.
I mean, or he's flying around with it. I mean, I don't know that he's saying he's taking it to this presidential museum. I don't know. But the idea somehow that the Qataris made this gift to the country, first of all, it's way out of bounds. It's a definite pay-to-play situation.
Violates the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution.
Yes. Most certainly, but as most clauses in the Constitution exist, they have to be enforced. And if there's no cop on the beat, and there really isn't, Congress is, I think what this administration has really done overall, I'd love your thought, is they have created a situation, again, the controlling party, whereby Congress is almost it's a rounding error when it comes to the administration. They can get a lot of stuff done without Congress, and they figure out ways even to get money, money for the White House, money for any number of things he wants to do at the White House, which are totaling, hundreds of millions of dollars. He's jackhammering it out of the National Park Service budget. He's taking it from other places without congressional approval.
Yeah, I agree with you. And remember, Congress has rolled over and played dead. Just listen to Speaker Johnson and his comments across the board. It is, I must tell you, the most distressing to me that the co-equal branches of government are no longer co-equal. And clearly, the legacy of Republican Congress will resonate. Now, you asked me about the Democratic Party, and I will tell you, the Democrats have a real battle going on within their own party over what direction they and we will take. But in turn, let me point out that if the Democrats do succeed in taking the House of Representatives, I don't think they'll take the Senate. If we have time, we can talk about that. But the House of Representatives, I can be very clear about this. There will be investigations, and the Republicans are not happy about that at all. And Speaker Johnson himself will be culpable if these investigations proceed, as I believe they will, to expose corruption, graft, and frankly, the failures of the Trump administration on every level and the Republicans in Congress.
Just because you're a wonky guy, and I want to get this information in as well, wonky when it comes to politics, House Republican leaders canceling votes on multiple major bills, sent lawmakers home for nearly a 2-week recess because a handful of GOP members were rebelling. And they rebelled, as you know, over the Save America Act.
Yep, and Congresswoman Luna, who's a lunatic.
The hardliner rebellion indefinitely extends a freeze on most floor business that began last week because of, again, these conservative frustrations over the Save America Act and the Republican-written elections bill, which Trump says he wants as his number one legislative priority, as noted here. So
he won't sign the housing bill, which passed with Democratic and Republican support, a bipartisan bill, because he says it's not important. What's important is the Save America Act. If we go by the Save America Act point by point, it doesn't save America. It dooms our ability to have free, functional elections. And let me also point out that we are very concerned, and this you were right about. I hate to say you were right, but you were correct, that the elections are in jeopardy because of the lack of our ability to understand the intent of the Trump administration. In fact, members of the military leadership were asked whether they would send troops to polling booths, and they didn't want to answer the question. Unlike the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who made clear he would not dispatch troops if President Trump ordered it. So, this is a real challenge between now and November. And I hope I'm right, that the American people, no matter how they redistrict, no matter what they say, no matter what they do, the American people will stand up and just say no. That to me is an imperative, and we will know in just a few weeks.
Well, I'm out of time, but next time I'd love for you to address what is a growing change in the Democratic Party and how the Democratic Party may have to reconstitute itself in some ways. It's going to have to integrate a more populist message. One of the great things about Mamdani is he seems to be following through on that which he spoke of on the stump. And I think these progressive ideals are not just spoken of, but this progressive leadership may represent real follow-through that the Democrats have been busted on before.
Or it will demonstrate failure because Mamdani, as popular as he appears to be, has not been able to implement the key elements of his program. So we have to see, and we didn't talk about Colorado. We haven't talked about many things. But
that's what I'm talking about is Colorado right now. Why do you think I'm talking about it? That's what I'm talking about. Give me your thought. I mean, if you want to be more specific, I'm talking about integrating these progressive candidates' viewpoints into the mainstream party.
We're going to find out.
In Colorado, you saw that prevailing. You saw that populist message prevailing.
Yes, but I also saw the attorney general of the state, who is now the Democratic candidate for governor, who takes a very different stand than one congressional district. How it's going to play out, I agree with you, is going to be a major battle. By the way, this is a battle faced by both parties. Will the Republican Party return to its roots, or will it be the party of Donald Trump? Will the Democratic
I think that's a great point. I think that's a great point. Yep. Good stuff. All right, John Rothman. You can find John on his podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothman, daily. And I'm not around to interrupt him, so enjoy it. John Rothman, love you, my friend. Thank you for coming through.
Thank
you. Have a happy 4th of July. I guess you're not going to be on the mall for the 4th of July, National State Fair.
I will be emceeing the Golden Gate Park Band at 1 o'clock on July 4th in Golden Gate Park. If you're able to stop by, please do. It'd be a pleasure to greet you. That's 1 o'clock.
Thompson, party of 4.
Yeah, save me 4 down in front. All right. See you, John Rothman. Thank you. Appreciate you being here, sir.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.